What does the Age of Aquarius? For some time, we are all hearing about the Age of Aquarius. Probably hear opinions that from this age, we are more evolved, mankind will enter a new phase, which will end all the problems that plague us. Was this true? Moreover, when, after all, start the so-called Age of Aquarius? Let's try to answer these questions through this post-antes. It is necessary to understand what A was. The celestial pole imaginary extension of the Earth's pole performs a circular motion, from east to west, which takes 25,794 years. This number is still no consensus among scholars to go back to where it came from. As you describe this movement, there is a shift towards the constellation marking the spring equinox in the northern hemisphere. Thus, there are about 2,000 years, was the constellation Aries inaugurating the spring equinox. Now is Fish that is there. It will soon be Aquarius. Note that the zodiac is traversed from back to front. Astronomically, so the spring in the northern hemisphere is starting with the constellation of Pisces, though astrology, Kali the sign that represents the spring remains Aries. Dividing 25,794 years by 12 signs, we can say that each astrological age would last about 2149 years. Now we will try to answer the question: the Aquarian age has already begun, and if not, how long would NESARA start? The answer to this question is controversial. There are scholars who say that the Aquarian age has begun, and others believe that it will begin in about 150 years. However, although there are discussions as to when the Aquarian age will actually begin, most astrologers believe we are in a transition phase between the Age of Pisces and Aquarius, that is, we are still living according to all standards of the Piscean age, but now merged with the challenges of the next era. It is necessary to understand a little what each was for us to talk about what it means to this transition, and where we are going. Each was usually has symbols that reach the utmost importance during the term. Thus, for example, during the Age of Taurus approximately between 4000 and 2000 BC, the bull was worshipped in Egypt, represented as the Apis bull, and how the cult of the Minotaur creature with the head of Taurus and human body. The next was Aries. The lamb appeared in numerous religious events such as Amun-Ra, the god with lamb head, or the myth of the golden fleece. And in the Age of Pisces, the fish naturally became the sacred animal. Each also has its avatars, which would be historical figures who concentrate all the features that they carry. Moses, for example, who guided the Jewish people through the desert, would have been an avatar of the Age of Aries, and Christ would have been an avatar of the Age of Pisces. Each age brings out all the sign of the questions that is, but also the sign that is opposed to it. Thus, for example, the Age of Taurus met impoundment Taurus, the earth element sign, related to form the waters of the Nile. Scorpio, the element water sign, and it is known that this fact had fundamental importance in the development of Egyptian civilization. It was in this age that arose religions grounded, and that humans began to settle, no longer nomadic. Conflicts of dominance and power typical Taurus and Scorpio axis were present throughout this era. Age of Aries was characterized by wars, disputes, and the emergence of more male gods. Aries is a masculine polarity sign, as opposed to goddesses that prevailed until then. At this time also developed culture and the arts. Libra, the sign opposite Aries, and Buddhism came, a typical Libran religion to preach the path of male. Piscean shifts the action from the east to Europe. Christianity is born with the Age of Pisces, and most of the facts are related to it, from the persecution of early Christians to the time when the Catholic Church raises an incalculable power. During the Middle Ages, the Church controls all forms of knowledge, and its precepts exert unrelenting influence on people. It is the height of the power of belief. Pisces, the threat is not to take something real person or engage in any other form of punishment, but order it to burn forever in hellfire, activating the impressionable nature inherent in fish. But it is the worldly interests, virgin reflexes, earth sign, material nature that drive the sale of pardons, so-called indulgences, and other heavenly blessings. The fish was also aware of the religious crusades, the holy wars, and also the work of the Jesuits in spreading their religion. It is marked by an intense religious fervor. The philosophy of the Age of Pisces, though often applied in entirely distorted manner, is the need for redemption, salvation, overcoming matter and devotion to an ideal. The sign of Virgo, opposite the fish, also manifested in this age, when he brings the development of science, as well as byproducts of that, such as excessive rationalism, skepticism and discard anything that cannot be proven and classified in the mold known. Virgo is also the sign attached to the body, the organic, the animal, the vegetable, and not the earth, as a great body, is so threatened, while ever the human being goes so far in its ability to unravel meticulously virgin as every part of the world works. Virgo is also the sign of manipulation and intervention, and the Piscean age brings an unprecedented possibility of the physical environment modification. In many ways, barely use this possibility, decimating animal and plant species, polluting the planet, and also creating an unlinked lifestyle, natural rhythms in the deification of work, one of virgin themes in productive life in excess of generating physical and psychological diseases. On the other hand, drugs developed and innovative solutions. We create inventions opened the possibilities. Today we have many comforts and facilities thanks to the interest Virginian for practical solutions. The era Pisces Virgo has a deep need for meaning, even if, in many instances, this becomes obliterated by religious manipulation Pisces or materialism Virgin. We live at the end of the Age of Pisces, the call to the Age of Aquarius. Scientific development accelerates. They begin to emerge religions and belief systems more based on strength of mind and belief that we can also be gods, an Aquarian way of thinking. There is a strong desire to resolve our differences and be more tolerant and open, and be free of old conditioning that accompany us for millennia. On the other hand, thinkers begin to imagine a future made by such a cold rationality that could symbolize the shadow of Aquarius. A world where a social system was so tightly organized in support of the set that chips were implanted in people's brains, nullifying their individual creativity and desires, which are symbolized by the sign of Leo, opposite the Aquarium. A world with such power of intervention that almost could manufacture a human being to our liking with all the dangers that it embeds. A world in which technology Aquarius was so dominant that it could make room for terrible forms of control and centralization. Reflection Lion, with the suffocation of freedom, one of the strongest Aquarian needs. In fact, in all eras was difficult to balance the two signs involved. Mankind has spent much of the Piscean age with its capacity for analysis and judgment symbolized by Virgin blocked by beliefs imposed from the top down. When, from the 19th century, the scientific spirit began to develop, there was the Virgin who took the upper hand. It was discarded everything that could not explain and began a period of excessive rationality and fragmentation, which resulted in the emergence of mass emotional diseases resulting from lack of connection to something bigger. Why do you think so many people take drugs in world? The Aquarian age is not, therefore, an era that automatically will lead us to brotherhood, an extraordinary understanding of who we are and what the world is, to a new form of organization, an unprecedented discovery of our mental power and the proper use of it. And why not? Because Aquarius is not a sign of better than fish, and fish is not better than Aries, just as no sign is better than another. In every age, we have choices to make. The technology, the main promise of the Aquarian age, both can lead to a separation of our instinctual side, making all too logical and cold, as it can be so improved that causes us to solve the problems that so far have created with the use of it. Penetrating mind Aquarian both can lead us to finally break with business as old damaging behaviors bring us excitement, alienation and rebellion, symptoms already currently present. The Aquarian age will undoubtedly be characterized by a major change in relation to other ages, because this is part of the Aquarius symbol. But this will lead us to a world really better? After all, who is right, the intellectuals who predict a cold world, too rational and controlled, or mystics who speak in an era of love? The potential of the Aquarian age would be for us to see ourselves as one race, as so far our hobby was annihilating each other, and from that, we join, being able, therefore, unimaginable advances, and create a new system of life that fully break with what negative life here. It was a really advanced Aquarius also not rule out that we were to carry out an exchange with other inhabitants of other planets, through the development of breakthrough technologies, either because finally we would be ready for it. An age of Aquarius well done would have to bear in mind the positive attributes of Leo, as the appreciation of the individual and creativity, heart and heat, so that society does not become too cold, mechanical and logic. The well-being of the individual Leo would have to be taken into consideration as far as the welfare of the group Aquarius. You cannot prevail over the other without this generates imbalances. But the Aquarian age will not bring all this tray. We have to win this promise positive that is embedded in it. We are being asked to choose as much as we were in other ages. For example, the age of Pisces could have been very special in terms of compassion, relaxation of our most destructive and aggressive characteristics, and it was not. Instead, it came the negative side of fish, such as blindness, misunderstanding and hysteria of the Holy Inquisitions. For example, you may wonder what you can do as an individual, so that we can really start a new era, a new time, transposing to the collective potential that already exists in most developed individuals, but that has never existed on a larger scale. Simply develop the positive side of Aquarius. Look more to the collective. Interest is more for him. Do not see your life as limited only to your home and nearby people. While there are miserable people and enslaved in the world, even the most beautiful part with the greatest harmony can be achieved. Aquarius means that we are all one people only. The time we meet is the people of Earth, which is responsible for it, then yes, we will be entering a new era. Without the development of this, the age of Aquarius will be like all the others, until we solve change. The choice is for each of us. The spiritual initiations era Aquarian. The first initiation is closely related to the planetary center, which is humanity itself. Produce, one last time, increasing stimulation of the intellect as it is expressed as ordered activity on the physical plane. It is also closely related to the third ray of active intelligence. This third ray has been an objective manifestation since 1425 AD and remain in incarnation throughout the Aquarian age. Its cycles are the longest of any cycle rays. However, within these major cycles there are periods of heightened activity that are like the beat or the heartbeat, and these periods last approximately 3,000 years. They are called one out of incarnation, withdrawal cycles, but not abstraction. They are 3,000 years incarnation. One of those 3,000 years term periods are here now, and we can expect great development of the intellectual faculty and a marked increase of creative work during this time. This particular cycle of expression marks a high point in the larger cycle. During the coming age, the race intelligence and its active development will assume real proportions, and this very quickly. The intensification of the life of the human center will proceed apace, and this is the reason why so many people will receive the first initiation. The students often forget that the first initiation can be described, in fact, as the rationale or externalization of the Christ principle in humanity as a whole and on the physical plane. Be the flowering of intelligence, allowing started work powerfully on the mental plane, and humanity itself be lifted and then aided in its entirety. See the coming of the activity of the throat center, and because the third ray is closely linked to the first ray, the first faint orientation of spiritual man towards Shambhala can take place, making it more and more intensified and pronounced at the time of third initiation. I would like to point out the numerical correspondences here. 1. The third major world center, humanity. 2. The third ray activity, active intelligence. 3. The third initiation, which marks the end of the first, as the fourth initiation marks the consummation of the second, and the fifth to the third. 4. The third major center, the throat center. 5. The third race, the Aryan, to express the first strictly human race, the Lemurian. 6. The third plane, the physical, the reflection of the third higher plane, the atmic. 7. The third periodical vehicle, the personality. 8. The third divine aspect, intelligence. 9. The third grade of divine messenger, Hercules. 10. Life-sustaining, the third outside Salu, the physical sun. These are some of the correspondence which is useful to keep in mind for revealing divine quality, spiritual intent and goals universes durant the Aquarian age and over a third of its expression, that is, during the first decade, esoterically considered, the vitalization of the human heart spiritually considered, and the plan and the steady growth of the broad creative activity, will be seen increasingly in both the individual and the race. This is due to the work and influence of Saturn, which is governed by the third ray. This planet is the planet of opportunity, of discipleship and testing, and race can expect a growing expression of Saturnine activity as that great divine life continues its beneficent task. The second initiation is closely related to the hierarchy as a planetary in the second ray activity center. This initiation produces in the initiate a growing sense of relationships, basic unit with all that breathes, and a recognition of the one life which will finally lead to that brotherhood manifested state, which is the goal of the Aquarian age to bring into existence. The largest center, the hierarchy, brings focus love life to support humanity, and it is this basic love which the second decanate of Aquarius, governed as it is by Mercury, will bring into manifestation. Mercury, the messenger of the gods, the soul's hierarchy, always takes the message of love and establishes an unbreakable interrelationship between the two great planetary centers, the hierarchy and humanity. We have again in this connection certain fundamental numerical correspondences that are based on coming to the activity of an awakened heart center in the race. This is a second major center in the individual and is located above the diaphragm, and through it the hierarchy can reach all mankind and at the same time, the subhuman kingdoms. 1. The second planetary center, the hierarchy. 2. The second ray activity, love wisdom. 3. The second initiation which relates the solar plexus to the heart, humanity to the hierarchy, and the egoic ray and personality to the second, which is always basically in manifestation. 4. The center of the second ray, the heart center. 5. The second race Atlantean to culminate in the fourth, the next race. 6. The second plane, the astral plane. This is the reflection of the second higher plane. 7. The second periodical vehicle, the soul. 8. The second divine aspect, love wisdom. 9. The second type or grade of messenger, Christ. Buddha. 10. Life sustaining the second or subjective sun, the heart of the sun. To all these the sixth ray is listed as a light or subsidiary of the second. In this world cycle it can be said that the emphasis of all spiritual power is placed in the hierarchy which is, at present, the divine intermediary, interpreting the will of God, which is the purpose of Shambhala. It transmits or reduces the divine energy for the safe use to humanity becomes possible. It is clear, therefore, why in the second decanate of Aquarius can the hierarchy, as a representative of Shambhala and with the help of Mercury, bring into physical manifestation the coming avatar. This becomes possible when the work of the first decanate is completed and when Shambhala has released and finally redirected the energies of the third major center, humanity. This release and readjustment leads to creative and renewed spiritual life expression. A planetary alignment can take place, and this is an objective plan for which the hierarchy is preparing and for which own avatar is preparing to Shambhala. The third initiation is connected with Shambhala as a planetary center in the first ray activity. It must be remembered that this is the first initiation in which personality and soul are united and fused so that the two sides form a unit. When this initiation has occurred, will take place for the first time some of its wider group implications, which become reality if and henceforth constitute the motivating impulse of life started. Aspiration ends and takes place the most intense conviction. It is also interesting to note that Venus now comes into control in the third decanate of the Aquarian age. Venus is esoterically recognized as that mysterious force which is the mixture of love and wisdom, intelligence and synthesis, and understanding and brotherhood. Within the hierarchy the two great messengers who embodied the dual Venusian energy were the Buddha and Christ. The messenger what will come later and express the Shambhala urge to synthesis, hierarchical aspiration for love and desire of humanity by intelligent activity, combined with power, will bring together all in himself. All these qualities concentration in him, plus another quality or divine principle from which the race of men, however, knows nothing and for which there is no name. It will be a great and powerful avatar and is not at all following the line of our humanity. The numerical correspondences can be seen as follows, remembering that the third initiation is in fact the first initiation of the soul, after complete identification with the personality within the life and consciousness of the monad, the one and the first. 1. The first planetary center, Shambhala. 2. The activity of the first ray, will or power. 3. The third initiation, which is the first initiation of the soul, relating the base of the spine to the center of the head and the soul to the monad. 4. The first major center, the head. 5. The first true divine race, the final race. 6. The third plan, which is in reality the first soul of the plane of consciousness, a reflection of the higher, the logoic. 7. The first periodical vehicle, the monadic. 8. The first divine aspect, will or power. 9. The first, or the highest type of mediator, the coming avatar. 10. Life sustaining the spiritual sun, the central spiritual sun. Now consider the trend of the types and stations in relation to the rays. Ray I, this ray is still out of manifestation but starting to bring decisive effect on the mental plane. Then he influences the minds of disciples everywhere and sets the stage for the emergence of a certain group of Shamballa disciples. In 2000 years, the influence of this ray will be felt powerfully in the physical. Consequently, in 100 years its power will be perceived in the astral plane. Ray, this distance is always subjective and very powerful demonstration because it is the ray of our solar system and particularly now, in the present, because the hierarchy is approaching more closely humanity in preparation for the love crisis and an imminent most planetary initiation. Currently, however, the second ray is becoming objective in its influence on the physical plane and so it will be increasingly in the next 2200 years, when we'll withdraw gradually to the background. Ray 3, this ray will remain in objective incarnation, from the human point of view, for a long time, so long that it would be useless to anticipate your Desvanchadora influence. This planetary center which is humanity itself, still needs intensive application of these forces to thus stimulate even the lowest sons of men. Ray of, this ray, as you know, began to come into incarnation at the beginning of the next century 21 and, in collaboration with fomenting influence of Saturn, will lead many to the path of discipleship. When the peculiar energy, which we call, in a poor way of harmony through conflict and the forces of that planet, which provide opportunity for aspirant are working in combination and in an orderly synthesis, then we can expect adjustment very quickly in human affairs, particularly in connection with the way. This fourth ray is, ultimately, the radius that teaches the art of living in order to produce a synthesis of beauty. There is no beauty without unity, without embodied idealism and without the resulting symmetrical blossom. This is not the art of distance, as so often alleged, but the energy that brings to realization the beauty of those living forms that customize ideas and ideals seeking immediate expression. Many people claim to be the sixth ray because they dream of the expressive artistic life. As said before, the creative art is expressed in all the rays. Ray V, this ray has been in manifestation for nearly 70 years. Will by unique and special arrangement in over 50 years, interrupting his own normal cycle because it was felt that the needed special impulse out adequate and the impetus given to the human spirit of research has served its purpose. Any further intensification of mental processes now except through the general penetrating the third radius effect show would be disastrous. Spoke cycles are usually fixed and determined, but in mutual cooperation and because of the imminent approach of spiritual crisis, the Lord of the fifth ray and the Lord of the world decided to temporarily withdraw this kind of force. It will take about 50 years to accomplish. Ray Vi, this ray is out of manifestation for some time now, and will remain so with increasing rapidity. Ray 7, this ray is now coming into manifestation. Just here to add to the mass of information that we already have. A point of interest but of no special urgency for us is that the Lords of the Rays, through his planetary representatives, constitute a body of leaders forces in collaboration with the Lord of the World in Shamballa. His competence is a consultant and advisor, but not authoritarian. This can be considered by some of us as the most interesting information. If this is our attitude, so just shows our unpreparedness for the truly esoteric teaching. Students need a greater sense of real values leaders and spiritual sense of proportion. Planetary facts and solar facts can stimulate our imagination and broaden our horizon. For aspirants and disciples it is of greater value. All information and events in connection with Shambhala are always exciting to the neophyte who is ready to forget that should make your contact with the more familiar hierarchy before true and related perception is his. Discipleship and Rays. Ray 1, Strength, Power, Action, the Occultist. Ray 2, Consciousness Expansion Initiation, the True Psychic. Third Ray, Adaptation, Development, Evolution, the Magician. Fourth Ray, Vibration Response Expression, the Artist. Ray 5, Mentalization, Knowledge, Science, the Scientist. Sixth Ray, Devotion Abstraction Idealism, the Devotee. 7 Ray, Enchantment, Magic, Ritual, the Ritualist. In the Aquarian Age, as a result of the existing combination of ray influences, humanity will enter an expansion of consciousness that you reveal group relations instead of their individual and self-centered relationships. Recalling that Aquarius is found in the upper half of the zodiacal circle and is exactly opposite to Leo, which is found in the lower half. Leo is the sign of individual unfoldment, and I like self-assertive. This highly individualized sign consummates in Aquarius, in which the individual finds full expression through the group, moving from service to himself and expression of himself as a personality, the group of service and the growing rank of expression of which he firmly, if ever closer. To this end, the ray influences will increasingly and firmly addressed. Humanity has reached a stage in which the sense of individuality is rapidly emerging. In all fields of human expression, men and women are becoming decisively self-assertive. The old commentary refers symbolically to this in the following words. The lion begins to roar. He rushes forward, and his desire to live handles destruction. Then again, he roars and, rushing to the stream of life, drinks deep. So, having drunk, the magic of water acts. It remains transformed. The lion disappears and he who bears the aquarium appears and gives beginning to its mission. Those with vision can see this happening everywhere today. The water carrier, another name for the worldwide server, is beginning its self-proposed task. Hence the anchor in the land of the new group of world servers, whose representatives are found in every country and in every major city. This took place without exception in all the different rays. Express many views. Your field of service is widely diversified and their techniques so diverse that in some cases, to the person of narrow-minded, it is not easy to understand. But reverting to the language of symbolism, all carry on their shoulders the pitcher containing the water of life, and all emit light, somehow, through his environment. To us who live and work in this interim period and this transition cycle with all the chaos and exterior resulting revolt, is given the task of expressing steadfastness, service and giving. These are the three key words. Light team is invincible.